Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
21 international organizations call for immediate end to Gaza siege. US dismayed at Egypt vote. And thousands of Iranian students stage protests over scientists slaying. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
نستهل جولتنا من حيث دعت 21 منظمة عالمية.
21 international human rights organizations called for a new worldwide movement to lift the siege on the Gaza Strip immediately, completely, and unconditionally. The organizations said in their statement that Israel's measures to ease the siege are illegal and have not changed a thing in the lives of civilians. They added that though the international community reduced its pressure on Israel, very little has been done to effectively lift the restrictions on the daily life of Gaza residents. Our correspondent Wali Talu reports.
رفع القيود بشكل فاعل عن الحياة اليومية لسكان القطاع ضئيلا جدا. مراسلنا وائل الدحدوح وهذا التقرير.
They are surprised to hear about the talks on lifting the siege on Gaza. They are still cooped up in a tent or a semi-tent. The family of Haj Abu Sahal was displaced after their house was destroyed in the war on Gaza. After 2 years of a bitter life, Haj Abdul Sahal is still dreaming about rebuilding his house, but the continuation of the blockade is standing between him and his dream.
The siege exists here and it gets tighter all the time. Our suffering increases as the siege gets harsher because the siege bans construction materials.
In the neighborhood, the cement factories are still semi-closed due to the relentless Israeli restrictions on construction materials. The workers are working at a fraction of their total production capacity, but not because they are having fun. The construction materials that enter from the permitted channels are far from enough. The war destroyed tens of thousands of houses.
It is extremely unfortunate that these buildings are not finished. The reason for that is the lack of construction materials available in the industry, especially concrete and cement, which are considered the basic materials for this industry. And everybody knows that the factories employ more than 30% of the labor in Gaza.
The situation is not very different for medical care. Israel allows few people to reach humanitarian aid by going through its crossings. This situation prompted international organizations to raise their voice, calling for the siege on Gaza to be lifted.
We have seen no easing of the blockade, that's Ricardo.
We have seen no easing of the blockade. In terms of rebuilding Gaza, the disastrous war that struck Gaza destroyed 5,000 houses and severely damaged numerous others that are impossible to rebuild.
Until now, the international community's voice has not been strong to subject Israel to the power of international law, if it has any power at all. Israel often tries to escape international pressure by issuing formal resolutions that it will soon retract. This is the philosophy of those who criticize the siege in Gaza. Gazans believe this siege will not end without lifting the ban on construction materials or without gaining their right to choose their fate and travel freely, beginning with their right to live. Wael Todo, Al Jazeera, Gaza, Palestine.
غزة فلسطين.
Civil rights groups are accusing Israel of only marginally easing its 3-year-old blockade of the Gaza Strip, leaving the people there in a continuing state of humanitarian crisis. The 21 NGOs accuse Israel of ducking promises to ease the blockade's effect on civilians, a pledge it made after the commando raid in May on the Turkish flotilla. The report said Israel is allowing in more food and some building materials, but is dragging its feet on major construction projects. Israel and Egypt have blockaded Gaza since Hamas seized power there in June 2007. Israel says the blockade is needed to keep Hamas, which has fired thousands of rockets into southern Israel, from building up its arsenal. The IDF deflected the blame, saying Palestinians in Gaza had not built up the capacity to allow more materials to enter the coastal territory. Israel allows for 250 trucks to be brought in each day, but the Palestinians only bring in 176.
What Israel is calling the easing of the blockade is no easing at all for the people we work with, for the ordinary Palestinians, the people in our projects. We are seeing that 80% of Gazans are still dependent on humanitarian aid. The job situation hasn't changed in any way, so we are still in a situation where there is massive unemployment. Around 40% of Gazans are still without jobs. There are no opportunities for exports, no freedom of movement.
Israel does not see the people of Gaza as our enemy. On the contrary, the people of Gaza suffer like Israel suffers from a terrible authoritarian Hamas regime. And we are committed to making sure that civilian goods reach the civilian population of the Gaza Strip.
On the final day of his visit to the region, German President Christian Wulff met with PA President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah. The two discussed the stalled peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. Wulff later traveled to Bethlehem, where he toured the Church of the Nativity and a Christian school.
The Saturday market in Gaza is seeing a rising demand for second-hand cars. This is because citizens fear that new imported cars may be equipped with surveillance tools. My colleague Mohammed Al-Madhoun has a special report.
Today is Saturday, one of the 2 days of the week that the car market in Gaza is active. The trading activity here started to regain its vitality because Israel allowed new cars into the Gaza Strip after banning them for more than 4 years. For 2 months, the occupation has allowed a limited number of cars, no more than 20 each week, to enter the Strip. This has lowered the prices of used cars and prompted some people to buy them.
I said we have saved some money thinking that we could afford a car from the market, but to our surprise, the prices of the new cars are very high. I mean, I couldn't imagine it would be so high. We waited for a month to see if the price would go down. Any car dealer who brought cars from Israel sells them at crazy high prices here. In contrast to other countries, the prices of the cars are expensive here.
We cannot afford to buy a new car, nor can other people. A car that costs 5,000 Jordanian dinars, people here are offering 1,500 dinars to buy it. 2/3 of the people are financially broke.
So the situation has not improved much. The prices are still high compared to those before the siege and to neighboring countries. Besides that, Gaza is suffering from a large shortage of cars due to the 4-year ban. 1,200 cars would have been imported every year if not for the ban. It's safe to say that what is happening now is not the market recovering, as it is very slowly compensating for the shortage the Strip has suffered from.
The number of cars imported is not enough for the Gaza Strip. Of course, there has been a shortage for 5 years or 6 years since the close down. There are cars destroyed by the war. There are cars that have been worn out and are no longer suitable for driving on the road.
But what made Israel allow the entry of these cars? The question received an ambiguous answer from the Israeli government. This prompted the resistance and factional leaders to be careful about buying these cars, despite the intensive security check conducted on the cars as a precautionary measure due to fear that they may be equipped with surveillance tools or explosives. These fears were affirmed by the Ministry of Interior several weeks ago. They unveiled confiscated tapping equipment that was planted in civilian cars by the occupation. In addition to this, Israel recently carried out the assassination of 3 resistance members. It is believed that at least one of them was riding in a new car.
We have alerted the Palestinian resistance factions of the importance of running a complete complete a precautionary security check. This is because the occupation may have tried to install some tap-in devices, surveillance tools, or other equipment in these cars. And of course, the occupation will not stop at this in its attempt to get the Palestinian resistance. It will use anything in order to get the members of the resistance. So we have warned them and reminded them to run security checks. But we cannot guarantee a 100% complete check of these cars, especially when the occupation's modern technology goes beyond our abilities.
With a situation like this, people in Gaza are still cautious about buying new cars and are content with the old cars. It is just in case, as they may be surprised by a new car that turns into a moving coffin. The car market in Gaza is a mirror that reflects the relationship Palestinians have with their enemy. This enemy is capable of changing the activities of the Palestinian market with one of its many decisions. The Palestinian people doubt this decision and do not perceive it to be well-meaning, even if it came as part of the broad Israeli project called Easing the Siege.
The leaked U.S. State Department documents released by WikiLeaks reveal that Barack Obama's administration sought to convince other countries to resettle suspected terrorists, former Guantanamo detainees. The documents WikiLeaks published indicate the German government refused to accept Chinese Muslim Uyghur detainees due to Beijing's warning that it might hurt their bilateral relations. As for France, the documents revealed it accepted some of the detainees with the goal of improving its previously tense relationship with Washington. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warned that those who released the information would be held accountable.
WikiLeaks' third round of leaks has placed American officials in a bind unlike that of the two previous releases. This time, the leaked documents reveal cables of the U.S. State Department, the institution in charge of strengthening U.S. relations with the rest of the world.
This disclosure is not just an attack.
This disclosure is not just an attack on America's foreign policy interests. It is an attack on the international community, the alliances and partnerships, the conversations and negotiations that safeguard global security and advance economic prosperity.
One of the revelations that generated the most controversy is found in cables between American officials and some of their Arab counterparts regarding the Iranian nuclear program.
If anything, any of the
So if anything, any of the comments that are being reported on allegedly from the cables confirm the fact that Iran poses a very serious threat in the eyes of many of her neighbors and a serious concern far beyond her region. This is why the international community came together to pass the strongest possible sanctions against Iran. It did not happen because the United States went out and said, please do this for us. It happened because countries, once they evaluated the evidence concerning Iran's actions and intentions, reached the same conclusion that the United States reached.
Since WikiLeaks started publishing American documents last summer, the U.S. administration has considered the act illegal because it reveals stolen classified documents. The U.S. Justice Department says it can prove WikiLeaks committed a criminal act punishable by law.
We have an active, ongoing criminal investigation.
We have an active, ongoing criminal investigation in regards to this matter. We are not in a position yet to announce the results of that investigation.
Until the result of the investigation is revealed, American officials confirm that they aim to hold accountable all those responsible for the leak. This includes the American citizens who stole the documents and those behind WikiLeaks. Rahman Ahmad, BBC, Washington.
WikiLeaks. Luqman Ahmed, BBC, Washington.
Washington has expressed disappointment over reports of irregularities in Egypt's parliamentary elections. U.S. State Department spokesman Philip Crowley said that such violation raises concern over the fairness and transparency of the process. The initial results of the first round of elections are showing that the ruling National Party is winning with the majority of votes. Voter turnout was estimated at 25%. Meanwhile, the Muslim Brotherhood group said that election results are invalid. Loai Gabra has the details.
Egyptian parliamentary elections were held amidst protests by the opposition blocs, which were not surprised by the initial results, saying they have been predetermined. The opposition accused the ruling National Party of fraud and ballot tampering in favor of its candidates, citing incidents of violence, intimidation, as well as stuffing the ballot boxes. From a government standpoint, the story was quite the opposite. The government said the election process was democratic and free of violations.
The election committee is in charge of screening the ballots and reviewing any claims of violation. The committee will address all concerns and problems filed by the candidates regarding the voting process since this morning until polls close.
The Egyptian public has expressed mixed reactions regarding this first round of parliamentary elections, which have so far secured a landslide victory for the ruling National Party.
I arrived here on time, but they didn't allow me to cast my ballot. It was 10 minutes to 7 when I got here. They don't want me to vote.
The Muslim Brotherhood group, which is the main rival of the ruling National Democratic Party and the largest opposition parliamentary bloc, said that none of its candidates won in the first round of elections. In 2005, the group made unprecedented progress, winning 1/5 of parliamentary seats. Some of the Muslim Brotherhood candidates entered the race as independents in order to circumvent the ban imposed on religious parties, hoping to compete for 30% of the seats in the People's Assembly. Egypt has elected the largest parliament in its history. Observers believe this was the test for political blocs to better prepare themselves for the upcoming presidential election set to take place next year.
The Muslim Brotherhood will enter the race in the runoff election for the People's Assembly scheduled for next week. The group will compete for 27 seats, far below the 88 seats it has won in the previous elections.
Iran's parliament, meanwhile, has called on the Iranian negotiating team to seriously defend the country's nuclear rights in its upcoming comprehensive talks with the P5+1 group. 261 lawmakers have, in a statement, voiced support for Iran's push to access peaceful nuclear energy. Iran's Supreme National Security Council has announced that the talks with the P5+1 group will be held on December 6th in Geneva.
Well, Iran says countries which keep threatening with military action are responsible for Monday's terrorist attacks against 2 academics. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Ramin Mehmanparaz was referring to recent comments by top U.S. Army Commander Admiral Mike Mullen, who said Washington is considering military options against Iran. Mehmanparaz said the scientists were targeted by those who claim to advocate human rights. He added that the U.S. and its allies use human rights as a leverage to pressure other nations. The spokesman noted that inhumane actions such as the assassination of scientists will never hinder Iran's nuclear achievements. Well, the Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council says the implementation of the UN resolution by terrorists is a scandal for the Security Council.
Dr. Saeed Jalili's remarks refer to terrorist attacks in the capital Tehran against 2 university professors. Dr. Jalili has strongly condemned the attack, saying targeting scientists and university professors is a strategic move by arrogant powers to monopolize knowledge. Dr. Majid Shahriari and Professor Fereydun Abbasi were both targeted by car bombs early Monday. Dr. Shahriari was killed on the spot and his wife sustained injuries. Also, Professor Abbasi and his wife were injured. The UN Resolution 17-47 had listed Abbasi among a group of people allegedly involved in Iran's nuclear program.
Meanwhile, in Iran, thousands of students have staged a rally to condemn that terrorist attack against the two Iranian academics. The rally was held on Tehran's Shahid Beheshti University campus, where both scientists held professorships. A number of officials also took part in the rally. Now, students chanted slogans against the U.S., Israel, and Britain, demanding justice for the perpetrators. Dr. Majid Shahriari was assassinated, and Dr. Faridun Abbasi sustained injuries in two separate bomb attacks in Tehran on Monday.
The Iraqi High Criminal Court has issued verdicts in the case known as displacement of Iraqi Kurds. The court handed down a sentence to former Iraqi Minister of the Interior Saadun Shakir Mahmoud and Misbah Khudr Hadi on charges of committing crimes against humanity. The court found 12 other defendants not guilty due to lack of evidence.
The Iraqi High Criminal Court, presided over by Judge Saad Yahya Abdul Wahid, has handed down a death sentence to Saadun Shakir Mohammed, Misbah Khudr Hadi, and Aziz Saleh Numan. The defendants were convicted on charges of taking part in the campaign that was launched against the Iraqi Kurds during the 1980s. The Iraqi regime launched a campaign of terror against the Kurds in an attempt to strip them of citizenship, expel them from Iraq, and seize their assets.
The court concluded that the crimes committed against the Iraqi Kurds constituted genocide. The court's decision was based on Article 11 on genocide and Article 12 on displacement. The verdicts were reached after a thorough and lengthy investigation by the preliminary criminal court.
The court also convicted Tariq Aziz and Ahmad Hussein Khudayr on crimes against humanity, sentencing them to 10 years in prison. The defendants were accused of leading a campaign of terror against an Iraqi minority group, including displacement, imprisonment, and oppression.
To start with, Tariq Aziz is an Iraqi citizen. He is being treated like any other Iraqi citizen. Iraqi laws apply to him just like they apply to others. If he's convicted of a crime, he will be punished. He will not be spared because he knows certain people or certain circles. The law applies equally to everyone, no matter who the person is.
Due to lack of evidence, the court has ordered the release of the following: Fadil Selfij Azawi, Sabawi Ibrahim Al-Hassan, Wathban Ibrahim Al-Hassan, Sabir Abdul Aziz Hussein, Numan Ali Mohammed, Abdul Hamid Suleiman Ibrahim, Saad Salih Ahmad, Mohammed Khudair Sabah, Fadil Abbas Ibrahim, and Iyad Tuma Shihab. All the court's rulings are subject to appeal in the next 10 days. The expulsion of tens of thousands of Iraqi Kurds and the martyring of thousands of others while in captivity at the hands of the tyrant regime are crimes against humanity, which can't be forgotten by history, even when the perpetrators are sentenced to death. In front of the Iraqi High Criminal Court's building in Baghdad, Ala Al-Khafaji, Iraqiya Channel.
The third African Union, European Union summit concludes today in Libya. The meetings witnessed division and heated debate on the nature of the partnership between the two sides. Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi said attempts to establish a just partnership between the two unions failed, warning that the African continent could resort to finding new partners outside the European Union.
In the Libyan capital, the Third African Union-European Union Summit launched its agenda, filled with several problematic issues that were not resolved in the two previous summits, held in Lisbon, Portugal in 2007 and in Cairo in 2000. Topping the list of attendees that includes heads of state and governments are European Commission President José Manuel Barroso, African Union Commission President Jean Ping, and President of the European Union Council Herman Van Rompuy. envoy, in addition to Arab League Secretary General Amr Moussa. However, this summit was incomplete as German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President Nicolas Sarkozy, and Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir were absent. The Libyan Foreign Ministry explained that the absence of a number of European leaders was caused by the expected attendance of Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir. Sources saw al-Bashir's decision to renounce attending the summit as a way to prevent embarrassing Libya, which is hosting a number of European presidents and leaders who had threatened to withdraw from the summit if al-Bashir attends. Tripoli's anticipated announcement on the summit will encompass a number of issues related to treating the effects of immigration, climate change, achieving a sustainable energy market, ensuring food security, and accomplishing development goals between Northern Europe and Southern Africa. World leaders and governments in both unions will pledge to strengthen the private sector, considering it a major impetus for sustainable economic growth. They will work together to secure the achievements in the Africa-Europe cooperation, improve its presence at international institutions, including the UN General Assembly, promote political dialogues between Africans and Europeans, and provide coordinated positions in international negotiations. They will also work on reforming the United Nations, especially the General Assembly and the Security Council.
في المفاوضات الدولية وسيعملون كذلك على إصلاح الأمم المتحدة وخاصة الجمعية العامة ومجلس الأمن.
If we want to reform the United Nations Security Council, every representative in the Security Council should represent a group of countries. We reiterate our call for the European Union to have a permanent seat on the Security Council. In exchange, there should be a permanent seat for the African Union on the Security Council. Political observers hope the summit will strongly benefit Africa-Europe cooperation. So the questions brought forward at every summit still remain. What do the Europeans want from Africa, and what does Africa want from Europe? And what dominates North-South relations?
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.